What's going on? I'm having technical problems. Hang on. Okay. Somebody's calling me. Hang on. Okay. I love you too. Thank you. It's my great-grandmother calling from the grave. Where am I? Sorry I'm late. I apologize. Medicare for all, climate change, no billionaires. Unless you're for those three, don't ask for my vote and don't ask me for money. I'll be talking about this a little later on. RFK Jr. has been nominated to destroy the Department of Health and Human Services. And Mike Pence, the former vice president, warned that RFK Jr. is the most pro-abortion Republican ever appointed Secretary of HHS in modern history. I don't think so. He's all over the map when it comes to abortion. But one thing's for certain about RFK Jr., he's appalled by Donald Trump's eating habits. You might remember the Daily Beast reported that Kennedy said, quote, "The stuff that he eats is really like bad." Mr. Kennedy recounted the offerings on Donald Trump's plane, adding, "Campaign food is always bad, but the food that goes onto that airplane is poison. You have a choice between, well, you don't have a choice. You're either given KFC or Big Macs. That's like when you're lucky, and the rest of the stuff I consider kind of inedible." He says, "I don't eat McDonald's. I don't drink Coca-Cola." That's what Bobby Kennedy said. In an interview with the New York Times, they asked him, "What do you eat?" He said, "I never eat at McDonald's." He said, "I used to, but not anymore because it's poison." He says he has an app that counts the number of days that he last drank a Coca-Cola. And it's been, he says, thousands and thousands of days since Bobby Kennedy drank a bottle of Coca-Cola. That's what Bobby Kennedy says. He says it'll kill you. And he says, as head of HHS, he's going to make America eat healthy again. That's what Bobby Kennedy says. And then Donald Trump Jr. took to Twitter yesterday and posted this photo of Elon Musk, Don Jr., Don Sr., and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Trump's jet, chowing down McDonald's. And Don Jr. laughingly wrote, "We start eating healthy tomorrow." Look at this. This is RFK Jr., the liar, eating a Big Mac, fries, and a Coca-Cola right there last night on the Trump plane. Bobby Kennedy Jr., who's going to make us all, what happened? Who's going to make us all eat good again. Why is this? I don't know why that's happening. Let me just get rid of that. Okay. This is why I kept you waiting for 10 minutes. I'm having technical problems. So there's Don Sr. with RFK Jr. watching him eat McDonald's. He reminds me, Donald Trump reminds me of Tony Soprano trying to get Christopher to start drinking again, because this is what mobsters do. Bobby is in the 12-step program. He used to do coke, not drink it. He used to do coke. And the drug coke is almost as bad for you as the drink coke. And you know that Trump is sitting on the plane going, "Come on, Bobby. You can't do one line of coke? Really? You lack that much control? Come on, do a line. Show us how strong you are. Show us you can do just one line of coke, that you have the power to resist temptation. Just do one line. Show us you're not weak. As a sign of loyalty to me, Bobby, do a line of coke." The 12-step program, what's that? What, are you weak? Are you I can't have an alcoholic or a drug addict working for me. Maybe as a son, but not working for me. Come on, Bobby, do a line of coke. You see, the truth is, about this entire Trump administration. It was and always has been one big joke. All of it. They're laughing. Look at them laughing at how funny it is that they got Bobby Kennedy Jr. to eat a Big Mac. So it's just a joke. It's just a grift. Trump is just taking advantage of a weak man. Bobby Kennedy Jr. is defective, and that's the only people Donald Trump can surround himself with. Trump didn't pick Kennedy in spite of the fact that he isn't all there. Trump picked Kennedy because Kennedy isn't all there. So everybody's worried about Bobby Kennedy destroying our medical community. He's not taking on Big Pharma. Donald Trump wouldn't dare cut into Big Pharma's profits. The whole thing is a grift. If Bobby Kennedy really cared about the American people, he'd be talking about Medicare for all. Instead of taking on Big Pharma and telling people you have to make your own medical decisions, he'd be fighting for Medicare for all. If he really cared about our health, he'd be telling Donald Trump, you got to put the oil, you got to keep the oil in the ground. And he'd be saying we have to outlaw billionaires because billionaires are killing us. But Bobby Kennedy Jr. is a grifter. This is why his family and his wife won't talk to him. He's a grifter just like everybody else on that jet. Now, I read a stat right before the show started that 2/3 of Americans are obese. Now, I have to double check this. I know that it used to be half this country was obese, not fat, but obese. Now, I have to triple check this, but I think I saw something right before the show started where 2/3 of Americans are obese. Why? Because of McDonald's. Eating McDonald's, when politicians like Donald Trump, eat McDonald's, they're trying to signal they're just like ordinary Americans. No, all it signals is you're addicted to salt, fat, and sugar. You don't have pedestrian tastes like ordinary Americans. You're an addict. You're addicted to fat, salt, and sugar. McDonald's is an addiction, just like cocaine. People are addicted to cocaine. They're addicted to Diet Coke. How many people do I know who are addicted to Diet Coke, which makes you fatter? And of course, people are addicted to Coke. Bobby Kennedy said he used to drink like 10 bottles of Coca-Cola every day. He's an addict, and Kennedy has talked about this. He says food is an addiction in this country. It's why people are obese, because this is what Bobby Kennedy has said. McDonald's manipulates food by finding the perfect combination of salt, fat, and sugar to get you addicted, so you eat more and more, so you're never satisfied. That's why McDonald's creates obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. And there they are, laughing it up on Trump's plane last night. Bobby Kennedy Jr. Eating McDonald's. It's all a lie. It's all a grift. So people ask me, well, why are you so optimistic? Well, these people are not Hitler. Hitler actually believed what he was saying. Trump is just trying to make money, hurt his enemies, but he doesn't care. Unless, I have been wrong before. This is the mop-up for November 18th, 2024. Snopes confirmed that Russian state television aired naked pictures of Melania Trump right after Donald Trump won the election. The pictures were featured during prime time on the Russian version of 60 Minutes. It's hosted by Olga Skaviva and Yevgeny Popov, who seemed to smirk and mock the third Mrs. Trump as they showed very naked pictures of Melania Trump right after Donald won. Now, before you start saying this was Putin signaling to Trump, don't forget, Donald, I have plenty of stuff on you, and I'm not afraid of exposing it to the world. You should know that had Kamala Harris won, Vladimir Putin was prepared to release topless photos of Doug Emhoff. So that's an actual topless photo of Doug Emhoff. Very sexy beast. For the first time since the invasion, President Biden said Ukraine now has permission to use American long-range missiles to attack inside Russia. United States' Army tactical missile systems can fire these bombs that travel as far as 190 miles into Russia, and they can reach high altitudes that make it way more difficult for Russia to shoot them out of the sky. This, as new reports indicate, that North Korea is providing as many as 100,000 additional troops to Russia in Russia's war with Ukraine. The good news is the planet may be over before Trump even takes office. Trump nominated Brendan Carr to chair the FCC. Carr authored the parts of the Project 2025 document that called on Trump to take on the censorship cartel, which he says is made up of broadcast television, Apple, Facebook, and Google, which this guy Carr insists only promotes one type of viewpoint. Yeah, right. Carr has in the past called for banning TikTok in the United States, labeling it a national security risk. Trump originally supported a ban on TikTok while he was president the first time, but then this year, Trump reversed course and said he didn't support a ban on TikTok. Trump said that right after receiving a large injection of cash from billionaire Jeffrey Yass, who is a major investor in TikTok. Billionaire Jeffrey Yass reportedly hired Kellyanne Conway, remember her? He hired her to lobby Trump into changing his mind about TikTok, which he did. Jeffrey Yass, the billionaire, funnels much of his campaign donations through the right-wing organization Club for Growth. The Harris campaign is now unfairly under attack after reports that she paid Oprah's production company $2.5 million to produce a town hall event. The New York Times yesterday broke down some of the spending by the Harris campaign in an article entitled "How Kamala Harris Burned Through $1.5 billion in 15 Weeks." She didn't burn through it. She inherited an infrastructure that burned through it. But she is the top of the ticket. So she has to take responsibility for this. But she's being unfairly attacked. I talked about how the campaign paid Oprah Winfrey's production company $1 million to produce a town hall event with Kamala Harris. And I tried to put an end to the rumor that Oprah Winfrey herself was paid the $1 million to endorse Harris. That's just a lie. So please pay attention to this because it's really unfair. Now, it does turn out that Oprah's company was paid $2.5 million by the Harris campaign for production services. A little later on in the show, if there's time, I will go over the spending and how the Harris campaign is still asking for money. But it would be illegal not to pay Oprah's company $2.5 million for the services she provided. Let me repeat this. It would have been illegal not to pay Oprah's company $2.5 million for the services she provided. You might recall Donald Trump was convicted in a Manhattan courtroom for violating campaign finance laws when he reimbursed Michael Cohen, his attorney at the time, for hush money payments to a porn star in the lead up to the 2016 presidential campaign. Michael Cohen and Donald Trump violated campaign finance law because hush money payments to a porn star in the lead up to an election are considered contributions in kind. It's not money. but it's kind of like a contribution. Private individuals are only allowed to donate a set amount of money to a candidate. Providing hush money payments or dirt on Hillary Clinton or free production services for a town hall would be considered a contribution in kind. Oprah is not allowed to donate her company's production services to the Harris campaign. That's a contribution in kind. Now, we can debate whether Harris and the Democrats wasted money on these big ticket items and whether consultants were getting rich off her campaign doing absolutely nothing. Actually, there's no reason to debate that. They wasted money on big ticket items and consultants got rich sabotaging the Democrats. The Harris campaign, if you read that New York Times article, the Harris campaign literally, Baraki Sellers said, we literally couldn't spend that money fast enough. They didn't know how to spend it. I'll talk about the Times article at the end of the show. But Oprah Winfrey doesn't need $2.5 million from the Harris campaign. She doesn't need that money. And it would have been against the law for her to provide those services for free. Now, we can have another conversation about performers and celebrities appearing with presidential candidates and calling that a contribution in kind. If Oprah, what does she charge for her personal appearances? I have no idea. I bet 6 figures. So when she steps on a stage or when Bruce Springsteen performs at a Kamala Harris rally, Bruce Springsteen, one of his shows, what does he get? $1 million? One could argue that that too is a contribution in kind. And if we had a fully functioning FEC, which we don't, well, maybe instead of musicians, actors, celebrities offering up their services for free to show up at campaign events, maybe that would be considered a contribution in kind, and political rallies would just be candidates talking about the issues. Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, Beyonce, an argument could be made they actually hurt Kamala Harris's chances of winning. I don't know, but I've heard that argument. Because just if you're incredibly entertaining, if you put on an amazing show, that doesn't necessarily mean you have a clue as to what's best for America. And you know who probably gets that? Americans. I love Bruce Springsteen. I'm from New Jersey, but he's the last person I'm going to turn to when it comes to figuring out who or what I should vote for. He's worth $500 million. And yes, I think less of him because of that. Medicare for all, climate change, get rid of the billionaires, maybe get rid of the $500 million. Say it out loud. Medicare for all, climate change, get rid of billionaires, tax billionaires out of existence, the wealth tax. Medicare for all, which means you have to outlaw private health insurance companies. If you're not talking about outlawing private health insurance companies, you are worthless to me. If you're not talking about keeping fossil fuel in the ground, you are worthless to me. If you're not talking about outlawing ExxonMobil, you don't get my money and you don't get my vote. If you are not talking about taxing billionaires out of existence, what are you doing in the Democratic Party? What are you doing wasting my time and wasting money, our money? I love Bruce Springsteen, but unless he's singing about outlawing private health insurance companies, outlawing the fossil fuel industries and taxing billionaires out of existence, then shut up and sing. Israeli airstrikes in Beirut on Sunday killed Hezbollah's chief spokesman, Mohammed Afif. He was Hezbollah's head of media, and he was killed during an Israeli strike in central Beirut. The BBC reports he was one of the last remaining public faces of Hezbollah that has not been killed by the Israeli military. Lebanon's health ministry said 4 others died, 14 were injured. Meanwhile, 100 Palestinians were reportedly killed in northern Gaza after Israel targeted what it called a terrorist stronghold. 3 people were arrested in Israel yesterday after the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, discovered his home had been hit by flares. The Pope is now calling for an investigation to determine if Israel is committing genocide on the people of Gaza. According to the authors of a brand new book released tomorrow, the book features a series of interviews with Pope Francis to celebrate his upcoming Jubilee. According to this book, the Pope, for the first time since fighting broke out, the Pope is now calling for an investigation to determine whether genocide is being committed on the people of Gaza. President Biden met with Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Peru on Saturday. Biden and the Chinese leader reached an agreement that the use of nuclear weapons should be decided by humans and not artificial intelligence. Wow, that makes me feel good. So when the world comes to an end, at least we can take solace in knowing the robots didn't win. This is how bad the news is. This is how bad. This is considered good news. That China and America have reached an agreement that if we use nuclear weapons, humans, not robots, will decide to bring on the apocalypse. Let's take a victory lap. That's such great news. How about agreeing nobody should ever use nuclear weapons? Wouldn't that be an agreement that should be reached between China and Joe Biden? I'm pretty certain that after a nuclear holocaust, nobody is going to say, whoa, 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 whoa. Was that a robot that pressed the button? Because if that was a robot, I'm going to take you to where the International Criminal Court used to be. Jesus Christ. Donald Trump is reportedly not using the FBI to perform background checks on his cabinet picks. Instead, he's relying on private contractors, and we know they can be trusted. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Kid Rock attended a UFC fight at Madison Square Garden Saturday night. Shouldn't Elon Musk be reading? I know Kid Rock and the Donald Trump, they don't read, but I keep hearing how smart Elon Musk is. How smart can you be if you're running around with Trump and Kid Rock? Say what you will about Warren Buffett. Sure, he's not the richest man in the world, but he's close. And you know what he does all day, Warren Buffett? He reads. He sits and reads all day. Same thing goes for Obama. How smart can Elon Musk be if he's running around with these fools? Half of Donald Trump's post-election stock market rally on Wall Street was wiped out on Friday when investors began to see the influence that Elon Musk seems to be having over Trump. Wall Street doesn't like it. For example, the markets on Friday responded negatively after reports Elon Musk is urging Donald Trump to nominate this Mieskite, Howard Lutnick, the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, Howard Lutnick, to head the Treasury Department. You might remember 2 weeks ago I played you a clip of this Mieskite, Lutnick, on CNN saying vaccines aren't safe, and he admitted to CNN that he's an anti-vaxxer. I'd play you the clip. I'm having technical problems this morning. That's why the show started late. The New Republic reports that Elon Musk is pissing off the Trump aides who are trying to assemble a White House. There are other reports that Trump enjoys Musk being around because Like Trump, Musk is also an agent of chaos who keeps everyone in Mar-a-Lago back on their heels, uncertain of where they stand in the upcoming administration. Musk appeals to Trump's lack of impulse control, and reports are coming out of Mar-a-Lago that Trump is making cabinet picks without conferring with his transition team. Everyone, you've all had bosses like this, and you know how Trump is threatened by everyone. So he keeps all employees on a need-to-know basis so they don't accrue too much power underneath him. This is his management style, which is why he declared bankruptcy at least 6 times, and 1 million Americans died from COVID. This is why 1 million Americans died from COVID. We've all had bosses like Donald Trump, people who are bosses who don't know what they're doing, who are threatened by somebody with actual intelligence. Elon Musk is reported to have met privately with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations last Monday, but the Iranian ambassador denied the meeting ever took place. So Elon Musk, is that a violation of the Logan Act? Isn't this what got General Michael Flynn? Isn't this why General Michael Flynn couldn't be the national security advisor? Because he started negotiating with the Russians before Trump took office? Why is Elon Musk meeting privately with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations? There are also reports that Elon Musk is in constant communication with Vladimir Putin. And you might remember that Musk reportedly provided satellite equipment to the Ukrainian military, but then shut it down after he learned they were about to use the satellite equipment to launch a drone attack on a Russian warship. So he came under attack, Musk came under attack for deciding when the Ukrainian military could use his satellites and when they couldn't. Now, Walter Isaacson, the author of the book about Elon Musk, he was the first one to report this. But then he said it was all based on false information. He retracted it. But Walter Isaacson, the very wealthy historian, is very chummy with billionaires. He somehow found his way onto the board of directors of Halliburton, among other corporations. Professor Harvey J. K. Walter Isaacson is not. Who ever heard of a historian sitting on the board of Halliburton? I don't understand that. Isaacson, no fan of Bernie Sanders. I remember this tweet. He deleted it. He reported that Elon Musk shut down satellite services for the Ukrainian military, and then he said, I got that wrong. And I remember this tweet that he deleted when it looked like Bernie Sanders was going to get the Democratic nomination 4 years ago. Quote, if Bernie Sanders secures the Democratic nomination 11 days from now, as is possible, the Russians will have succeeded in hacking our democracy. I suspect that the Russians would then work to elect Sanders over Trump, unquote. And then he deleted it. Now, this is Walter Isaacson, supposedly a well-respected historian. He wrote the Elon Musk book, the Henry Kissinger book. He wrote the definitive Steve Jobs book. Seems to be obsessed with, Henry Kissinger wasn't a billionaire. He was just a mass murderer and a war criminal. Loves billionaires and war criminals, or likes writing about them. So I'm going to assume, and this is just conjecture, that Isaacson got the story right the first time when he said Elon Musk shut off the satellite link for the Ukrainian military because he didn't want them to attack the Russian Navy. And I'm just assuming, I don't know, but given Walter Isaacson's track record, I'm just going to assume he retracted that report out of fear of alienating Elon Musk. There are new reports that Arab Americans living in Michigan who voted for Donald Trump because of the Biden administration's refusal to rein in Israel, they are now disappointed by Trump's cabinet picks. Rexinaldo Nazarko is the leader of IMEAN, the American Muslim Engagement and Empowerment Network, and he said he supported Trump. He voted for Trump, but now 10 days later, he said, "We are very disappointed. It seems like this administration has been packed entirely with neoconservatives and extremely pro-Israel, pro-war people, which is a failure on the side of President Trump to the pro-peace and anti-war movement." I played the clip of Trump landing in Michigan. He said it 3 weeks ago before the election that Benjamin Netanyahu is doing a great job and that Biden is making a mistake by not letting Benjamin Netanyahu finish the job in Gaza. The Pennsylvania Senate race is now heading for a recount with Senator Bob Casey, the Democrat, refusing to concede. By the way, if Casey does win Pennsylvania, who knows? I don't think he will. But if he does win Pennsylvania, I will have called every down ballot marquee race correctly. I called Jackie Rosen in Nevada, Ruben Gallego in Arizona, Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, Josh Stein in North Carolina, and Elisa Slotkin in Michigan. They all won, and I said they were going to win. They all won despite Kamala Harris losing. And I insisted Kamala Harris was going to win Nevada because Jackie Rosen is going to win. She's going to win Arizona because Ruben Gallego is going to win. She's going to win Wisconsin because Tammy Baldwin is going to win. She's going to win North Carolina because Josh Stein is going to win. She's going to win Michigan because Elisa Slotkin is going to win. And she's going to win Pennsylvania because Bob Casey is going to win. I got that wrong. I got Kamala Harris wrong. Maybe I got Bob Casey right. And if Bob Casey does win, then I would have called all 6 down ballot races correctly. And then how is it possible that 5, possibly 6 down ballot candidates won in these swing states, but Kamala Harris did not? Leave a comment. How is it possible that 5, maybe 6 down ballot candidates won, but Kamala Harris did not? Senator Joe Manchin says he will help President Biden push through more judges during the lame duck session of Congress that only has 6 more weeks left. Biden is close to getting just as many judges appointed as Trump did during his first 4 years. And Mitch McConnell, by the way, privately warned Donald Trump that the Senate will not be signing on to recess appointments. He said, all your picks, all your cabinet picks will have to go through the Senate. Now, Mitch McConnell will not be the majority leader. John Thune will be, but he is McConnell's hand-picked successor. This is the mop-up for November 19th, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me. Inch by inch, the fight, I'm happy. I see what's going on. There are people who are going to fight for this country. I'm optimistic. We win this inch by inch. Some of us will get back into the game sooner than others, but I'm exhilarated, and I see what's going on. I'm exhilarated. I know this is a period of mourning for some, but you will be back in the game. There are all these articles now. This time it's different. The resistance won't stand up to Trump. Watch. Lick your wounds. When you're ready to fight, come back. Please share this episode. Please like this episode. Subscribe to my newsletter. I read all your comments. And if I make a mistake, please correct me. I don't think other than telling you that Kamala Harris was going to be our next president, I don't think, other than that, other than the big mistake, I don't seem to have gotten too many mistakes. Please let me know. I read 2/3 of Americans are now obese. I'll double check that. But if you think I got it wrong, leave a comment. Shares of Geo Group, the for-profit prison company, doubled in price since Donald Trump won on November 5th. According to the New York Times, Wall Street investors have been assured by the heads of Geo Group that a Trump presidency would spark $400 million in new business as he begins to round up undocumented Americans. According to a July investigation by Crew, C-R-E-W, Crew, according to their investigation, Geo Group and its executives were the first super PAC and individuals to max out their contributions to Donald Trump's campaign this year. Geo Group also donated $500,000 to Donald Trump's Make America Great Again super PAC. $500,000. And they donated more than $266,000 to the Sedition Caucus. Remember the Sedition Caucus? That was a nickname given to the 147 Republican members of the Senate and House of Representatives who refused to certify the election for Joe Biden in the hours immediately following the January 6th insurrection. America's top corporations promise they would never donate to these 147 Republican politicians ever again. And they kept their promise. No, they didn't. Of course they didn't. Well, the truth is, though, Wall Street doesn't want the immigrants rounded up. Some are saying that we will see a show of force, a sadistic show of force where lives are ruined, families tortured, separated, and destroyed. But it will be just horrifying enough to satisfy MAGA's bloodlust. And because Wall Street's business model depends on immigrants, including Mar-a-Lago's business model, Donald Trump's business model includes undocumented Americans working for him. The hope is we will be able to force him to order ICE to pull back. Or, and I do mean this, I joke about things, but this is serious. Either we order ICE to pull back, or we're heading for Nazi Germany. And I mean that. If you want to know if we're becoming Nazi Germany, pay attention to ICE and the for-profit detention facilities. If ICE is able to pull off 1/10 of what Stephen Miller and Tom Homan, the border czar, are threatening, we have a serious problem. So our first line of defense against fascism is ICE, which should be abolished. I've always said that ICE would be a bad president's Gestapo. It is a police force that answers solely to the President of the United States. The President of the United States controls immigration. So you need to follow ICE. I've been talking about ICE since before Donald Trump became president. This is even Kamala Harris, before she was a presidential candidate, said we have to reimagine ICE, and then she walked it back. Well, I'm not pointing fingers at Kamala Harris. but she knows what ICE is. She's from California. You're going to run for president and tell us democracy is on the line, that Donald Trump is a fascist, but you're not going to get rid of ICE? Come on. Come on. Pay attention to ICE. Pay attention to what your mayor and your governor, how they respond to ICE. How we stand up to ICE will be determinative of whether we lurch into fascism. Okay? Speaker Mike Johnson on Sunday pretended he wasn't sure how much it's going to cost to round up 1 to 14 million immigrants. He said, quote, "The president is starting with the most dangerous undocumented immigrants." There are no dangerous undocumented immigrants. There aren't. They are the most law-abiding people in America because they're thrilled to be here. Then Mike Johnson, who's a liar, said, I'm not sure what Trump's specific promise on immigration is. You're not certain on what Trump's specific promise is on immigration. Really? The rest of us seem to know that Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Tom Homan, the border czar, Stephen Miller, all promised to send 14 million people out of our country, declaring America is for Americans. But Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, isn't quite sure what Donald Trump promised. The one campaign issue that he ran on, Mike Johnson can't remember what it is. Can't remember. Interesting. Talks to Trump every day. Doesn't know what Trump's specific promise is. Remember you killed the border bill back in February because Trump told you that's my issue? Well, Mike Johnson says Trump's going to start with the most dangerous immigrants. Well, get rid of Elon Musk. Maybe we should take a vote on getting rid of Elon Musk. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm still on Twitter. I just retweet things on Twitter that I like. I kind of follow Twitter because you got to know what's out there. But if you are on Blue Sky, please follow me. Johnson also told another lie on Sunday when he said he has not discussed with Donald Trump whether to release that ethics report on Matt Gaetz. Of course not. Why would he discuss that with Donald Trump? According to people who have seen that ethics report, Gaetz's accuser, who said she was trafficked by the former congressman, trafficked at the age of 17 to have sex with Gaetz's friends, she says that she also saw Matt Gaetz allegedly have sex with a minor. That is what is being reported. 17, I guess, is not a minor, but she says she saw him have sex with a minor, allegedly. Gaetz is also allegedly accused in the ethics report of allegedly using illegal drugs at these parties. Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, who has a long contentious history with Gaetz, now calls Gaetz a good pick for Attorney General. But there's what these guys say and what they do. And a little critical thinking will help you get through the next, it won't be 4 years, the next couple of months. Some critical thinking. There's what they say and what they do. For example, while Markwayne Mullins says Gaetz is a good pick. He also said, but I want to see that ethics committee report. In other words, I don't want to piss off Donald Trump by calling Matt Gaetz a stupid pick for AG because I'm a frightened politician. That's what he means. Now, assuming Trump isn't going to physically threaten members of his own party, and I think that happened on January 6th, I'm going to assume there aren't enough votes there for Matt Gaetz. But we'll find out. Never underestimate the power of threatening someone's life. Remember the Sedition Caucus? 147 Republicans ran for their life. And with the stench of tear gas and feces still in the air, they cowered and wouldn't vote to confirm Joe Biden's win. The Washington Post on Sunday came out with an exclusive report that's not good for Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense. Not good. We are now learning that Trump's nominee for Secretary of Defense, Fox host Pete Hegseth, was accused of rape in 2017. According to some reports, the police back then concluded he was, quote unquote, the aggressor. According to new reporting in the New York Times, the woman who claimed she was raped contacted police 4 days after her encounter with Hegseth. Although the police report is yet to be made public, the Times says the police noted there were bruises on her thighs. According to the Washington Post, fearing he'd be fired by Fox News, Hegseth back then told his lawyers to pay the accuser in exchange for her signing an NDA. Rudy Giuliani has mailed his prized collection of watches to the Georgia election workers he defamed when he said they were stuffing ballots for Joe Biden back in 2020. Rudy defaulted on that defamation lawsuit. He was ordered to pay them $150 million. He tried to declare bankruptcy. His lawyer last week fired him. Last week, Rudy says he can't afford a lawyer and he can't afford food. And he seems, from what I'm hearing, Rudy seems to have finally turned over his $5 million New York apartment and his 1980 Mercedes, valued at $4,000, to the election workers. A trial has been set for early next year to determine whether he has to turn over his multi-million dollar apartment down in Florida to the women as well. He's asked, what, do you want me to be homeless? Yes. Yes, I want Rudy Giuliani. Well, no, prison. I want him to go to prison. Speaking of prison, 4 million American citizens were unable to vote on Election Day due to felony disenfranchisement laws. The Sentencing Project's latest report says 1 in 22 black people can't vote because they live in states that still prevent ex-felons from registering. In Arizona, Florida, Kentucky, South Dakota, and Tennessee, 10% of all black citizens have lost their right to vote due to prior convictions. And Arizona, Florida, Kentucky, South Dakota, Tennessee, all went for Trump. During the past 8 years, there has been a 31% decrease in the number of Americans who are forbidden from voting because of prior arrests. So the Sentencing Project reports that more and more states are beginning to recognize that taking the vote away from ex-felons is immoral. I believe people in prison should be allowed to vote. The Sentencing Project reports that states in the Southeast have been the most reluctant to restore voting rights. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. I've talked about this before, and every time I talk about it, people cannot believe this is true. I talked about this earlier in the year. It's incredibly upsetting. And there are prosecutors, public defenders, and politicians in Florida who don't know this. Here we go. Florida's citizens voted overwhelmingly in favor of a ballot initiative restoring voting rights to people who have been released from prison. This happened about 5 years ago. I don't know the exact date. So the Republican-controlled state legislature panicked and passed new laws mandating that before ex-prisoners can vote, they first have to pay the state back for the cost of keeping them behind bars. Florida's pay-to-stay law forces inmates to reimburse the state of Florida $50 for every day they spent behind bars. They are also charged $50 a day for time not served. So if someone is released early for good behavior, they still have to pay $50 a day for their original sentence. Back in June, ABC News in Florida, local ABC affiliate in Florida, reported on Shelby Hoffman, a woman who served less than a year on drug-related charges and left prison owing the state $127,750. How does $50 a day, that's what they charged her for going to prison, how does $50 a day for less than a year in prison add up to $127,750? Her original sentence was 7 years. The pay-to-stay law in Florida allows the state to charge for time not served. So, Shelby Hoffman was free to vote on November 5th in Florida, but she first had to show proof that she had reimbursed the state for $127,750. And we all know that someone who's just been released from prison has $127,750. During the Obama administration, they did a report on Ferguson, Missouri. This is how some states, some cities pay their bills. They mine poor people. They put poor people in a permanent cycle of debt where they're just paying fines. There are constant bench warrants. It's impossible for them to rise out of it, but you don't have to raise taxes on voters if you can just strip mine marginalized communities. Donald Trump is also a convicted felon, just like Shelby Hoffman. He awaits sentencing. By law, Donald Trump would have been forbidden from voting in Florida on November 5th, but Donald Trump was convicted in New York, not Florida. And Florida law says only felons convicted in Florida are forbidden from voting. Donald Trump has called for an investigation into the Des Moines Register pollster who predicted Harris would win the state of Iowa. He's calling for an investigation into a pollster. Ann Selzer announced she was dissolving her very well-respected polling unit after she showed Harris leading Trump in Iowa by 16 points 48 hours before Election Day. Trump said she knew exactly what she was doing. He then accused her of possible election fraud and called for an investigation. Wow. If this is how Donald Trump reacts to winning an election, I'd hate to see how he handles losing an election. Oh, wait, right, I forgot. January 6th. Stephen Chung has been picked as White House communications director. He was Donald Trump's official campaign spokesperson. And now Stephen Chung will be the communications director for the White House. Well, judging by the way things are shaping up, he's going to have a full plate and a lot of work to do. Public Citizen called on Susie Wiles, Trump's incoming... Public Citizen is the people's lobbyist, and you should donate to Public Citizen. Public Citizen is the people's lobbyist. Public Citizen called on Susie Wiles, that's Trump's incoming chief of staff. They called on her to pledge that she will not engage in lobbying the White House after she leaves her post as chief of staff. You can lobby the White House, by the way. Everybody thinks lobbyists hang out in the Capitol. They also hang out in the West Wing and are lobbyists there. Public Citizen said that in the past 7 years, Susie Wiles has worked as a lobbyist for 42 corporations that include tobacco, oil, copper, and gold mining, as well as nuclear waste management companies. She's a good person. She's a good person lobbying for tobacco, oil, copper, and gold mining, and nuclear waste management companies. What a good person. Public Citizen says her record includes lobbying on behalf of Big Tobacco to keep candy-flavored cigarettes legal, right? So kids get addicted early on and die. She's also urged the government to permit mining near a crucial pristine watershed. And she also lobbied the government not to force this corporation she worked for to remove radioactive waste. Well, if you love radioactive waste, you'll love working right next to Donald Trump's bathroom in the Oval Office. That's where the chief of staff works, right off the Oval Office restroom. There's now talk that Donald Trump will fire FBI Director Christopher Wray and replace him with MAGA loyalist Kash Patel. On a recent episode of Steve Bannon's podcast, Kash Patel put Democrats who prosecuted Trump officials who investigated Donald Trump for January 6th, he put them on notice saying, quote, "Steve, we will go out and find them. They're out there, not just in the government, they're also in the media. And we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig the presidential election in 2020. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. We'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice. And this is why they hate us. This is why they call us tyrannical." Yeah, and this is who Donald Trump is going to appoint to head the FBI. Pay attention to ICE. There is institutional memory still left at the FBI. There's no institutional memory over at ICE. If you want to protect us from turning into a fascist state, pay attention to ICE. Dijon Sauer, sounds like a mustard I use. Dijon Sauer is Donald Trump's pick for Solicitor General. That's the the lawyer for the government who goes before the Supreme Court and argues cases on behalf of the United States. So Dijon Sauer is Donald Trump's pick for Solicitor General to argue before the Supreme Court. The last time Dijon Sauer argued before the Supreme Court was during the oral hearings on presidential immunity, where Sauer, serving as Trump's attorney, said a president could order Navy SEALs to kill his political opponent and not be prosecuted for that after leaving office. Republican North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is Trump's pick to head the Department of Interior. The government watchdog Accountable, which you should give money to, the government watchdog Accountable, warned Burgum is an oil industry puppet. Accountable says Burgum earns $50,000 a year leasing land to oil companies. He attended Mar-a-Lago's meeting with oil executives where Donald Trump demanded $1 billion in donations from oil executives, calling it a great investment. Remember I told you about that? The Washington Post reported on this back in the spring. Accountable says the oil industry donated $500,000 to Burgum's failed presidential campaign this year. As North Dakota governor, Burgum cut taxes for oil companies and removed regulatory red tape. Oil industry CEO Chris Wright has been picked to head the Department of Energy. Former New York Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin has been nominated to head the EPA. Accountable says Zeldin has a long history of voting as a congressman to cut funding for the Environmental Protection Agency. The editor-in-chief of Scientific American, this is the oldest magazine in America. The editor-in-chief of Scientific American has been forced to resign after her social media post the day after November 5th, where she called Trump voters bigoted, fascists, mean, and dumb. Well, empiricism, it's hard to argue with the scientific method. Bigoted, fascists, mean, and dumb. Have you been reading about buyer's remorse? A lot of Trump supporters are saying, maybe I should have voted. Maybe I shouldn't have voted this way. But I'm told people shouldn't call Trump voters stupid. People wrote to me, you're the reason Harris lost because you're a New Yorker who kept calling Trump voters. You called Trump voters stupid too much. I don't think I called them stupid enough. That's the problem. Stupid people need to be told they're stupid. Buyer's remorse. David Cross, the comedian, has an amazing bit about Trump voters. Just look up David. I think I saw it on TikTok. It's absolutely brilliant about Trump voters thinking maybe it wasn't a good idea. Newly elected, how are we on time here? Okay. A newly elected Democratic senator from Arizona, Ruben Gallego, explained on CNN yesterday why he won Arizona, but Kamala Harris didn't. He said, you have a lot of Ivy League candidates that hire Ivy League Latinos that don't actually come from a working class background, and most Latinos are actually working class. Well, that sounds, it was the Ivy League educated Latinos. That's why Harris lost. Problem with that analysis, of course, is Kamala Harris, Coach Walsh, Joe Biden, they didn't attend the Ivy League. You know who did? J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Josh Hawley, Mike Hegseth, the pick for Department of Defense. I mean, I agree in breaking up the Ivy League. I think it's a disgrace. Can we talk about Medicare for all, climate catastrophe, and outlawing billionaires? I'm glad Ruben Gallego won, okay? But shut up about Ivy League Latinos. That's the reason Kamala Harris lost Arizona. Climate change, Medicare for all, outlawing billionaires. You want to win elections? Medicare for all, raise the minimum wage, free tuition at all public universities, free daycare, universal daycare. What the F are you talking about? It was the Ivy League Latinos. Jesus. I'm telling you, I said this to my sister. I'm not leaving the Democratic Party. These people are. I'm staying. I'm kicking these people out. I'm glad he won. He's a good guy. But come on. Massachusetts Democratic Congressman Seth Moulton said Harris lost because Americans have had it with transgender rights. Yes, that's why she lost. That's why people stayed home. Because the transgender people are using bathrooms and the Democrats are fighting for the Ivy League Latinos are fighting for the transgender community. That's why we lost. Go F yourself, Seth Moulton. What a good, the name is the thing, Moulton. Massachusetts Democratic Congressman Seth Moulton said Harris lost and the Democrats lost because, quote, Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenges many Americans face. The many challenges Americans face. Well, what aren't we talking about? What aren't the Democrats talking? Please tell me, Congressman Seth Moulton. He said these are the challenges Americans face. Quote, I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. Yeah. Let's be brutally honest about the challenges many Americans face. The fear that Seth Moulton's 2 little girls are going to get injured playing soccer because they got bumped by a male or formerly male athlete. That's why 5 million people, 5 million Democrats, 7 million Democrats stayed home. Because Seth Moulton's 2 little precious princesses have to play soccer with someone who used to be a man. Really? You should retire, Seth Moulton. A member of his staff quit in protest. Good on you. Good on you. So after the member of his staff quit, Moulton gave an interview and accused Democrats of being too quick to cancel. He said, maybe I didn't use the right words, but we should be willing to have these debates. No, you used the right words, Seth Moulton. You said the challenges Americans face are little girls getting run over on a playing field by male or formerly male athletes. That's what you said. And it was a very measured statement. That's why the Democrats lost. Very measured and calculated to scapegoat transgender athletes. Half this country can't come up with $500 for an emergency, But we need to have debates about transgender athletes, Seth Moulton. The transgender community, thanks to Democrats like Seth Moulton, the transgender community is now being scapegoated by both parties. Republicans have been scapegoating the transgender community to deflect attention away from their failure to protect the working class from corporate greed. And after Democrats failed to deliver Medicare for all, raising the minimum wage, taxing billionaires out of existence, free tuition at all public universities, they scapegoat the transgender community. Look over there. Let's scapegoat the people who are always being scapegoated, the transgender community. Seth Moulton should be thrown out of the Democratic Party because he should go F himself. Nobody stayed home. No Democrat stayed home on Election Day because Kamala Harris and the Democrats won't stand up to transgender athletes. This is what a Republican does. This is a Democrat behaving like a Republican. You fail to deliver on your promises. You fail to deliver for the working poor, for the middle class and the poor, and it's because your party's too concerned about transgender athletes. This is Delaware State Senator Sarah McBride, formerly Delaware State Senator. She was elected to Congress, and here she is last week for freshman orientation. Sarah McBride is now the first transgender member of Congress ever in United States history. It takes a lot of courage for her to go to Congress in this climate. Sarah McBride, Congresswoman Sarah McBride, deserves our support. And as my mother would say, and you're scared? You're scared? Every time you wake up and say, I'm scared about the future, give money to Sarah McBride. I know people are in a state of mourning. I understand that. And I'm not. I'm done. I got the fight back in me. There are Sarah McBride. You tell me you're depressed, sad, Sarah McBride. You're not. If you're depressed and frightened, you're not paying attention. There are good people. There are heroes out there every day. And I understand, I understand fear. I understand it. If you're frightened, come back to me when you want to get back into the game. But right now, I don't have patience for this kind of self-indulgence. ICE. You want to work on something? Fight ICE. Fight the for-profit detention GEO. You want to know who the enemy is? The for-profit detention centers. If you're worried about this becoming Nazi Germany or a banana republic, ICE and the for-profit detention center companies. Seriously, you're just not paying attention if you're not optimistic. I understand why people are. I do, but it's an exercise in solipsism, narcissism. It's self-indulgent to just throw up your arms and go, "We lost. It's over." You're just not. You're not paying attention. You're not paying attention. This is going to be our finest moment. It's going to be our finest moment. Heroes are being hatched every minute in this country. So why did the Democrats lose? Why did so many Democrats stay home? Racism, hatred for women, transgender, hatred for the transgender community, Gaza, inflation, economic issues. Again, half this country can't come up with $500 for a medical emergency. There are many, 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 many reasons the Democrats did so poorly. And Donald Trump, he's really hard to beat. Okay? America, for some, is no longer divided the way I divide them into the rich, the middle class, the poor, the very poor. We're divided. They try to divide us by our age, our sexuality, our gender, our religion, our ethnicity. We're beginning to see that to some degree, Trump was able to make inroads with certain demographics who say, you know what, I was born in Guatemala, but I'm fiscally conservative, and I mean, they're not Latinos, black people, women, transgender people, Jew. They're not monolithic. They're not one identity. They're a collection. I'm a collection of identities. I'm a man of multitudes. Did Ralph Waldo Emerson say that? Or Bob Dylan, or both? Or Whitman? Was it Walt Whitman or Slim Whitman? Or maybe it was a Whitman sampler. Who said, I'm a man of multitudes, or many multitudes, whatever? Now, the thing we're hearing now is America's divided between the educated and the uneducated. Professor Harvey J. Kaye writes about this over at Common Dreams. And David Brooks wrote about it over at the New York Times. And one of my sons was talking to me about this yesterday. I'm not so sure I buy into this, but this is what I'm hearing. Some are saying this is no longer the industrial age, it's the information age. And those who have access to information and know how to process that information face a better financial future here in America, as well as in China. People who can process information in China are going to be better off than those who do real work, who actually contribute to the nuts and bolts of society. The information age has produced a lot of bullshit jobs that contribute nothing other than more bullshit. I've been saying this for years. You know, instead of shuffling paper, we bombard each other with emails and try to convince ourselves we're being productive. And again, we lost on November 5th for many reasons. But it wasn't the transgender community, and it wasn't Harvard-educated Latinos. That being said, many at the top of the Democratic Party's food chain are wealthy, hyper-educated, snot-nosed pricks who say, I worked way too hard, I studied way too hard to end up back in Arkansas. You want me to go back to Arkansas? I'm talking about Bill and Hillary Clinton. When is the last time Bill Clinton stepped foot in Arkansas? Joe Biden, to his credit, is the first president in my lifetime, first Democrat, to talk about good-paying jobs that don't require a college degree. The Democrats, until Joe Biden, were blaming Americans for not working hard enough in school. Not Joe Biden. He kept talking about good-paying jobs. The Inflation Reduction Act is creating good-paying jobs that don't require a college degree. Now, Joe Biden, I love him? I love my country, and I'm a Democrat, and I'm a sucker. Yeah, I'm going to miss him. He was planning to run on a populist agenda, way more populist than what Kamala Harris was putting forward in the 2 months she had to launch a campaign. Joe Biden lacked the communication skills. He could not get the message out. I agree that he had to go. He didn't get elected the first time running on a populist agenda. He governed with a populist agenda. And I think had he been able to articulate and had he been able to stay in the race, he would have offered a full-throated alternative to Donald Trump's phony populism in 2024. Had Joe Biden not aged, he could have offered a much louder alternative to Donald Trump's phony populism. I think the mistake Kamala Harris made, looking back, is she tried to recreate Joe Biden's win in 2020, which was don't make any big promises. And then wait and see. If I win and I have both chambers of Congress, I'll surprise everyone like Joe Biden by pushing through an incredibly progressive agenda. I think underneath it all, Kamala Harris, if she were pressured, would have continued Joe Biden's trajectory and maybe possibly given us not Medicare for all, but a public option, public health insurance. But I think the lesson she took from Biden's win in 2020 was guaranteeing everybody that pretty much nothing is going to change. Remember, that's how Joe Biden got the nomination in 2020, and that's how he won the presidency, by saying, Donald Trump's an agent of chaos. You vote for me. It'll be reactionary. I'll take us back 4 years. Nothing. Think back to the way it was before Donald Trump was president, and nothing is going to be different. Nothing's going to change. And I think that's what Kamala Harris was told to do. That's what she decided to do. And that is smart politics, moving to the center. In fact, it's genius. It's absolute genius if you win. If you win, move to the center, win the election, and then govern like a populist, you're a genius. If you lose, Biden won that way, Obama won that way, Clinton, even Jimmy Carter won that way. They won by convincing voters. In my heart, I'm with the poor and the disenfranchised, but my brain is with the rich and powerful. That's how Obama, Clinton, and Biden won the presidency. And Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was a member of the Trilateral Commission before he got himself elected president, running as a peanut farmer from Georgia. And that, in a nutshell, pardon the pun, is why so many Democrats stayed home. That's why they stayed home. That wasn't going to work this time. You're up against Donald Trump. He is a liar. Donald Trump is a liar. But his lies are rooted in a foundational truth that the economy, foreign policy, And our criminal justice system doesn't work for the vast majority of Americans. That is the truth. And every time, nobody wanted him behind bars more than I. But every time you put him on trial, every time he gets indicted, the donations and the polling go up for him because he made a mockery of a criminal justice system that's a disgrace. And that registers with Americans. Anybody who has a relative who's been locked up, anybody who's been pulled over by the cops, anybody who's been victimized by a prosecutor just trying to put numbers on the board, that resonates with a lot of Americans. You know, there are a lot of people after OJ was acquitted and they saw the black community in LA cheering, and you had all these white liberals going, why are they cheering? What's going on? Remember the Rodney King video? 3 years ago, the Rodney King video was what, 91? OJ gets acquitted in 95. And you have white liberals in Los Angeles. I think I'm getting those numbers. OJ killed her in 94, and he did kill her. And he got acquitted in 95. Rodney King was beaten in 91 because the riots in LA were in 92. So I think I'm getting the years right. I couldn't believe I'm living in Los Angeles, and people, white liberals who, you know, all vote the right way, go, why are the black people cheering that OJ got off? Here, come here, I'll show you the Rodney King video and then how they all got acquitted. Remember the police got acquitted? So there is a foundational truth that Donald Trump builds his lie on. His lies are built on bedrock, on Manhattan schist. That's the rock here in New York that he builds on. He builds a skyscraper of lies on a bedrock of truth. And I'm afraid, looking back, I don't like to point fingers, but there were millions of Democrats who stayed home on Election Day because Kamala Harris, they all lie, but she didn't build her skyscraper of lies on a foundational truth. She didn't speak a foundational truth about the current state of our economy, the environment, and our healthcare system, and the plight of marginalized communities, and the police, and the prosecutors. Donald Trump speaks foundational truths, and then he lies about himself and what he's going to do about these foundational truths. That's one of the reasons I think she lost. Also, she's black, and she's a woman, and she's married to a Jewish man. Never underestimate the hatred in this country for women, the hatred for people of color. Never underestimate the hatred of former prosecutors or well-educated people. I mean, I don't think she was Ivy League, but you know, she's well educated. I had a little problem with her calling everybody y'all. I love Michelle. Michelle Obama makes me cry. And my mother, if you were not allowed to say anything bad about Michelle Obama, but when she gets up and speaks and she makes me cry, when she says, y'all, how y'all, It's like when George W. Bush put on that fake Texas twang and talked about folks. And Barack Obama used to talk about folks. Now it's y'all. It's like the Democratic Party spent $20 million focus grouping y'all versus folks, and they landed on y'all. Say what you will about my communication skills. I have never referred to my listeners as folks or addressed them as y'all. I've called my listeners douchebags, a-holes. Colleen Wertman calls my listeners basement masturbators, and I didn't disagree. But I would never insult my listeners' intelligence by calling them folks or saying y'all. I mean, the people who listen to this show are pretty stupid, but they're not that stupid. Jeff Hauser. Is anybody still here? You just can't. I just have to push people away. The people, this is why I ended up the way I am. The only people helping me now are my listeners. And what do? I push them away. You get too close to me, I push you away. Jeff Hauser, executive director of the Revolving Door Project, said Harris did better when she struck a populist chord with voters. He said that when her poll numbers in swing states where she spouted populist rhetoric, her poll numbers went up. But he says Harris ultimately ran as a centrist. Hauser says the Harris campaign ran television commercials with a strong anti-plutocratic message. And when those commercials aired, she got a bump in the polls. But Harris, he said, rejected going after plutocrats in her speeches or doing interviews. You watched what she would do. She kept reassuring Bret Baier that she wasn't a Marxist, that she wasn't a socialist, that she wasn't a big government, big spending Democrat. Hauser, from the Revolving Door Project, which you should give money to, cites an Atlantic magazine story that accuses Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, Tony West, he's Uber's general counsel, a lot of influence. He has a lot of influence over Kamala Harris. He reportedly, at least according to Atlantic Monthly, convinced Kamala Harris to tone down her populist message for fear of alienating Silicon Valley and Wall Street. And Obama World, David Plouffe from Obama World. Wasn't he from Facebook? He took a job at Facebook, I think. I think he took a job at Facebook. The billionaire host of Shark Tank, Mark Cuban, was more of a public face for the Harris campaign than Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. Hauser, over the Revolving Door Project, said Cuban was out there selling Harris as business-friendly, and he, Mark Cuban, as a surrogate for Kamala Harris, promised voters she wouldn't impose a wealth tax. Remember Joe Biden talked about a wealth tax? He was running on a wealth tax. The Arizona Republic reported in mid-October that Mark Cuban, billionaire, addressed a group of Hispanic voters in Phoenix, Arizona, assuring them they can earn more money as entrepreneurs and small business owners in a Harris administration. Well, is that a message the Democrats should be sending? If you think differently, let me know. Is that the message to send out, instead of Bernie, Kamala? is sending out Mark Cuban instead of Elizabeth Warren or Katie Porter, Jasmine Crockett, Cori Bush. They were campaigning for her, but Mark Cuban was front and center. Is that the message to get Hispanic voters in Arizona? That you'll make more money as an entrepreneur or a small business owner if Harris is president? Let me know if I'm getting this wrong. Yes, small business owners create jobs, but not great jobs. I've worked for small business owners. It's a nightmare. As I remember it, you're more likely, I'm going to be careful here, I think you're more likely to get health benefits from Starbucks than a mom and pop coffee shop, I think, because a mom and pop coffee shop says, we're family. You're part of our family. No health benefits for you. Starbucks, I'm not recommending Starbucks. I'm just saying, unless I'm wrong, let me know. This I do know. If you want to help a mom and pop coffee shop, if you want to help small business owners, Medicare for all, free dental, free eye. Then you can compete with Starbucks. If small business owners didn't have to worry about benefits, health care, if that was just taken off the table, you could be a coffee shop that competes with Starbucks. You could get the best employees. It's almost as if corporate America doesn't want Medicare for all because it keeps your workforce compliant. Gee, you think that might be it? I know I stayed at jobs working for pricks because I had a family and I couldn't give up the health care. Health care are the shackles of our imprisonment. You're not going to quit a job. You're going to work longer hours for less money because people are depending on you for health care. Getting fired is a matter of life and death. And that's what corporate America and the plutocrats like Mark Cuban want. Medicare for all, free dental, free eye. Take this job and shove it. If there were Medicare for all, and I look back at the pricks I worked for, and I could say, take this job and shove it without killing my family, because they'd end up without health care, every boss I had would, not every boss, but again, if you're not talking about this, you're worthless to me. You're worthless to me, Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban told voters, I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent. Then get the F out of my way. Get the F out of my way. Get out of the Democratic Party. F you, Mark Cuban. In Arizona, Cuban said, what I love about Kamala Harris is she's not an ideologue. Yeah, God forbid we have a candidate who believes something. Who would want that? Like being an ideologue is bad. The Arizona Republic reported that Mark Cuban told voters down in Arizona he has a problem with Donald Trump's origin story. What is this, a pitch at Disney? His origin story? Cuban said that Trump never in his life changed a flat tire. I'm pretty sure that's not a prerequisite for providing Medicare for all, whether or not you changed a flat tire. It's like this, like the top of the show. Oh, I ate at McDonald's. Oh, he's one of us. I can trust him because he changed a flat tire. Give me Medicare for all. Go have a 10-course meal at Chez Panisse and pay 10 chauffeurs to change your flat tire. I don't give a shit. Give me Medicare for all. Cuban told a crowd in Tucson, Arizona that he went ballistic after he saw the Biden administration's proposal for a wealth tax. Here we go, right? He bragged that after his tantrum, he called up Kamala Harris and threw a temper tantrum about the wealth tax. He saw that she was supporting Joe Biden's wealth tax, and he bragged to voters. Kamala Harris never once mentioned it again after I spoke to her. I'm going to vote for somebody who takes orders from Mark Cuban. Jeff Hauser, executive director of the Revolving Door Project, says, and you should give money to the Revolving Door Project, says Mark Cuban blamed a Kamala Harris campaign aide who previously worked for Senator Elizabeth Warren. Cuban blamed this campaign worker for convincing Harris to campaign on the wealth tax that Joe Biden was going to campaign on. And Mark Cuban publicly took credit for getting rid of the aide who urged Kamala Harris to push for a wealth tax. And he bragged, I got rid of the wealth tax. I talked her out of it. Is that how you win voters? Is that how you win the working class voters? Or is it the transgender community? Seth Moulton's daughters are playing soccer with women who used to be men. That's why the Democrats lost. Or Gallego says it's the Ivy League Latinos working for the Democratic Party. It's billionaires posing as Democrats, bragging to voters that I talked Kamala Harris out of supporting Joe Biden's wealth tax. That's how you lose elections. Mark Cuban, get the F out of the Democratic Party. Get the F out of the Democratic Party. Now, some of you have been asking me why I trash Mark Cuban and blame him when Donald Trump had Elon Musk, who spent something like $200 million to get Trump elected. Billionaires belong in the Republican Party. They're the ones. There is a massive Trump tax cut that expires next year. Joe Biden promised when he was running for president that he would not renew the Trump tax cut for the wealthiest 1%. Kamala Harris didn't run on that, okay? Mark Cuban belongs in the Republican Party. Do you think billionaires, let me know in the comments section, do you think billionaires should have a seat at the table in our party? If you don't believe in a wealth tax, if you don't believe in making billionaires pay their fair share, if you don't believe in eliminating billionaires through a fair and just tax system, should you have any say in the Democratic Party? Shouldn't you be a Republican? Mark Cuban is considering a run for president. Do you believe a billionaire is on your side? Completely. Remember Michael Bloomberg? He ran in 2020. Now, he's done some mediocre things on gun control. Everytown USA. He has pumped. This is an example of billionaires and their philanthropies. God bless Michael Bloomberg. After a couple of massacres, he set up Everytown USA. And he was going to fight. I'm going to use my money for good. And I'm creating this philanthropy called Everytown USA. And we are going to fight to get rid of the assault weapons. I have the money to take on the NRA. We are going to bring back the assault weapons ban and get these guns off the street. Yeah? How'd that work out? That's an example of what billionaires do. I'm not saying Everytown USA is a bad organization. They guaranteed the Onion's purchase of InfoWars, that they're going to advertise on InfoWars if the Onion owns it, and that's going to happen. But has Michael Bloomberg gotten us an assault weapons ban? I keep hearing how we need billionaires. They can solve all our problems. All right, you're a multi-billionaire, Michael Bloomberg, and you spent hundreds of millions of dollars taking on the NRA. What have you accomplished? Have you moved the needle? It seems to me, I'm seeing things now where women are arming up. Women now are saying they're going to get weapons. Billionaires are not on your side. Some of them mean well. Some of them mean well, except when it comes to spending their money. So if you think I'm being too rough on Mark Cuban, I want you to ask answer the following questions. Ask and consider this. Does Mark Cuban support putting health insurance companies out of business? Now, I know he's tried some kind of thing with drugs, trying to deliver drugs in a philanthropical way. If you believe in Medicare for all, that means you have to put for-profit health insurance companies out of business. You cannot have private health insurance companies and Medicare for all. So you have to put that entire industry to sleep. Do you support? So the question I always ask when I interview politicians who say they're for Medicare for all, I say, do you support putting health insurance companies out of business? And the politicians say, well, I think for-profit health insurance and Medicare can coexist. Then I know you don't get my vote. Does Mark Cuban support putting the fossil fuel companies out of business? Now, you see what's happening to the planet. Do you support putting ExxonMobil not just out of business, but on trial and making them pay all their profits go towards climate justice in the civil courts? Do you support making Shell and ExxonMobil hand over all their profits to marginalized communities who are being flooded around the world and being given 3 years to shut it all down? If you don't believe that, if you think ExxonMobil can coexist with solar and wind, take a look at who Donald Trump just made Secretary of Interior, who's running Department of Energy, who's going to run the EPA. If you think the oil companies and alternative energy can coexist, you don't get my vote, and you're not going to get my money. Does Mark Cuban support putting payday lenders out of business? Out of business. Payday lenders, biblically usurious interest rates, out of business. Does he support putting payday lenders out of business, outlawing loan sharks? Does Mark Cuban support putting private equity firms out of business by outlawing leveraged buyouts? It used to be illegal for Mitt Romney's Bain Capital to go in and buy, Toys R Us by taking out a loan and then putting the loan on the books of the company they just purchased and then gutting the business to pay back the loan. That used to be illegal. That's what private equity firms do, with no transparency. And they destroy the economy. They extract wealth. They don't put anything back into the economy. Private equity extracts wealth, destroys jobs, doesn't make us more competitive. It just puts people out of work with leveraged buyouts. Do you support putting private equity firms out of business by outlawing leveraged buyouts? A couple people say to me, well, private equity, they have to work too. Yeah, so do trained assassins. Yeah, trained assassins have to support a family too. Do you support putting Bain Capital out of business? Does Mark Cuban support a return to pre-Ronald Reagan era regulations which banned stock buybacks? It used to be illegal for a company like Apple to have $60 billion in profits and use it to buy back its stock and artificially juice the value of its stock. Are you willing to roll back the regulations so that when Apple or Microsoft has $60 billion in profits, it either uses that money to pay its workers more, invest in research and development, or do what a profitable company is supposed to do, and that is pay dividends. When a company has $60 billion in just cash sitting around, that money belongs to the shareholders, and it should be paid to them in dividends. But wealthy people don't want dividends because it's taxable. If Apple paid the $60 billion in dividends, the people who receive those dividends would have to pay taxes on it, and the government would get more money. Instead, they do buybacks where they eliminate, they get rid of stock. They buy their own stock. They create artificial scarcity for the stock, drive the price up. So people become rich on paper without any cash in their bank account that they have to pay taxes on. It used to be against the law for companies to buy their own stock back for many reasons, one of which is it's artificially inflating the price of your stock. It creates a false impression that the stock is more valuable than it actually is. Does Mark Cuban support getting rid of stock buybacks? No, he doesn't. He's worthless to me. He more than the transgender community or the Latino Ivy Leaguers. He is a much more significant reason why Democrats lost. Medicare for all, climate catastrophe, get rid of billionaires. You want my money? You want my vote? You better tell me you want to get rid of for-profit health insurance companies, that you want to get rid of the fossil fuel industry, and you want to get rid of billionaires. Otherwise, you may call yourself a Democrat, but you're completely full of shit. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Keep an eye on ICE. Find out where the detention centers are in your community. If you want to fight fascism, ICE, baby. This is the mop-up for November 19th, 2024. I'm sorry the show lasted so long. Please share this episode with your friends and like-minded individuals. Please, the best way, if you enjoyed any of this, if you want to thank me, the best way is by sharing this, however you share, and whatever. And please, well, let me try this. Do you like this? I didn't do it right. Okay. Hang on. Does this work? No. Okay. Technical. Oh. What's going on? This is why I couldn't do this. Hang on. I'm sorry. All right. This is why I was 10 minutes late. Donald, go to shopdavidfeldman.com. Oh my God. What's going on? Oh my God. Here. Go to Shop David Feldman, pick up garbage over at shopdavidfeldman.com like this. The Trump, I can't turn this off. Maybe. You know what the sad thing is? This is the best part of the show. The Trump fart filtration mask. I'm not going to even talk. Just, I swear to God, I can't make it stop. It's like, that's it. Okay. Whew. So much for, all right. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room. I don't even know any. I'm so confused here. Did you like this? That's nice. Okay. Goodbye. No show tomorrow. I'm going to do a show early 2:30 Wednesday morning. Sorry I went so long. And thank you for letting me do this, because yes, learning new things. I got some plastic surgery that didn't quite work out. So what can I tell you? All right. Bye.